Uh, Good evening, everyone. I probably shouldn't be doing this live stream tonight. Um, I've I mentioned it in the description. I forgot something that obviously is going around. I caught it by watching the most recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. And I have subsequently come down with mass formation psychosis. I didn't know that I'd had it. Apparently, I've had it for quite some time. Apparently, it's something that I've been carrying with me, and I just didn't know it for years, even maybe the past 2 years, at least, maybe the past 6. So I apologize if I don't know what bit are you talking about? I'm oh my gosh. I could feel it mostly in my brain, and mostly when I feel it mostly when I look at CNN. So I watched the most recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. So you don't have to. You're welcome. It's painful. And I was made aware of the phenomenon that I'm apparently, and most of you, I'm going to say all of you, certainly all of you watching live, you're all suffering from mass formation psychosis. And a good number of people who might watch later or not. I appreciate the concern. I don't think this illness is, this illness can be fatal. It's certainly very serious. And I think maybe we should hear a little more about it. I mean, it's affecting a large percentage of the world right now. Let's give it a little shot.
And I saw this headline in the New York Times. Epidemiologist and a vaccinologist, and the title was "How You Should Think About."
Okay, first of all, you should know this is Dr. Robert Malone. He's an epidemiologist. He was instrumental in the development of the mRNA technology used in the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. He was recently, about a week ago, I want to say, banned from Twitter for, let's just say, some questionable shit that he has come to believe and espouse. And even that beginning there, right? Like that first thing he says.
And I saw this headline in the New York Times. Epidemiologist and a vaccinologist, and the title was "How You Should Think About Children and Omicron." It was blatantly saying, this is how you should think. We're going to tell you how to think. Okay, people kind of got to get that in their head.
All right. So first of all, let's imagine the article exists. Let's imagine that for a minute. If an article is entitled "How You Should Think About Omicron in Your Children," to me, that's not a very prescriptive title. It's really like, look, here's how you should frame the idea of Omicron when it comes to how it's going to affect you and your kids. It's not here's what you need to do, or here's what we're telling you to do. The first thing I thought when I heard that bit, I was like, sounds to me like that was probably an op-ed, right? Like just by the name, that sounds to me like an opinion piece. So I looked it up. And, well, I mean, you could probably guess what the, oh, I can't show it in current scene. I got to come back to my main scene to show it. So he said it was called "How You Should Think About Omicron and Your Children." Here's what it was: how to think about Omicron's risk for children. And you can see it says right there, opinion guest essay. But even if it didn't, it's giving you context for like, look, here's the framework in which you should think about Omicron and how it could possibly affect your young ones. So let's just say wasn't off to a great start. I mean, this wasn't the start. This was near to the end of the show. But
and I saw this headline in the New York Times.
So we saw this headline.
Epidemiologist and a vaccinologist, and the title was "How You Should Think About Children and Omicron."
No, not the title. And
it was blatantly saying, "This is how you should think.
Regular.
We're going to tell you how to think." Okay, people kind of got to get that in their head. That's the world we're in right now. Now, what Matthias Desmet has shared with us, brilliant insight, is another one of those, now that part makes sense, which is that this comes from basically European intellectual inquiry into what the heck happened in Germany in the 20s and 30s. You know, very intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad.
So, I mean, how often are liberals ridiculed for, who else did X, Y, or Z, right? So here he's doing, who else did X, Y, or Z.
And how did that happen? The answer is mass formation psychosis. When you have a society that has become decoupled from each other.
Okay. So, well, some people are saying my voice is too low. Is it really? I don't know if that's going to help at all. It's right there at right about clipping. I can't really go any louder than that. Maybe his voice is too loud, or maybe just the tenor of his voice is too crappy. Anyway, so let's hear what he's talking about though. When he's saying mass formation psychosis, what does he mean?
And has free-floating anxiety and a sense that things don't make sense. We can't understand it. And then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis.
Like COVID. It's just like hypnosis, which
literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere.
Okay, so we're hypnotized. At that point, what can we do? Biden could say Fauci could go on CNN or whatever the mainstream media is tonight and make us all cluck like chickens. I think he actually said literally. Did he say literally?
Like hypnosis. They literally become hypnotized.
Literally become hypnotized.
Anywhere. And one of the aspects of that phenomena is the people that they identify as their leaders, the ones typically that come in and say, You have this pain, and I can solve it for you.
This guy hates Fauci. He hates the CDC. He basically, I mean, look, I watched 3 hours of this, okay? And the guy's clearly very intelligent, generally speaking, and he has tons of experience that I certainly don't have when it comes to epidemiology and immunology and how drugs are manufactured and why artificial scarcity is a thing. I mean, but a lot of that is business 101 too. But it is interesting to note that, like, in all of this, well, I'm going to point out a couple of like weird, crazy kind of contradiction. He contradicts himself a few times. But he kind of posits himself as like, I am the voice of truth I have nothing to gain from this, except his clients are literally, he has a client who is literally making an early treatment drug for COVID that is a combination of a couple of things. And they tried to get ivermectin into that cocktail, but the CDC apparently nixed it, and he's pretty upset about that.
Alone, okay, can fix this problem for you, okay, then they will follow that person through. It doesn't matter whether they lie to him or whatever.
See, that sounds like Trump to me. That doesn't sound like, I mean, Trump certainly spent 4 years lying and fabricating whatever the hell he wanted, and nobody blinked an eye. So, I mean, it's strange to me. Like, there's like facets of this where I'm like, well, I see that, but like totally inverted as far as audience goes, and as far as puppeteers go.
Data are irrelevant. And furthermore, anybody who questions that narrative is to be immediately attacked. They are the other. This is central to mass formation.
I hope that cough was just clearing your throat cough. Because, I mean, you look reasonably maybe healthy for a man. He's 10 years, he's like 11 years older than I am.
Psychosis. And this is what has happened. We had all those conditions. If you remember back before 2019, everybody was complaining, the world doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. He's doing the Elaine Beasley, just blah, blah, blah. All that stuff happened.
We're all isolated from each other. We're all on our little tools. We're not connected socially anymore, except through.
I do remember like seeing the pictures from early, like pre-beer hall putsch, Germany, when all like the brown shirts were all like obsessed with their iPads, totally obsessed. They could not look up.
Media. And then this thing happened and everybody focused on it. That is how mass formation psychosis happens. Matthias's recommendation is you got to get people to realize that what we've got is a situation of global totalitarianism. Cause a separation psychologically in this fusion, this hypnosis that has happened. The problem is, then you're just substituting a bigger boogeyman from the current one. And somebody else can come in and manipulate that. The real problem.
There's always going to be a problem when you have any situation where like one person or one single group has power over means of production or line to your God or whatever it is. But he's throwing a bunch of stuff. Like, he's really kitchen sinking this thing.
And it gets back to your core point. We're sick as a society, and we have to heal ourselves. And one of the things we have to do is come together. We have to recreate our social bonds. We have to buy into integrity, the importance of human dignity, and the importance of community.
Some of that is code, right? Like the importance of human dignity, what it seems to me like he means when he says the importance of human dignity is let us die how we want. Let us infect who we want. Let us live how we want. a part of human dignity in his mind, based on what I had seen in the rest of this podcast, was the ability to do whatever the hell you want and F the consequences for anyone around you.
That's how we get out of this. And I think that this insight of Matthias Desmet is really central to kind of making sense out of all of this crazy. We got a world in which the press is incentivized.
Oh, we live in a world. We live in a society, a new 742. We live in a something.
To push a storyline because they're all controlled by the same large funds that Pfizer is, and so is tech.
And those are the same companies and corporations that wouldn't fund what you're doing. You had to go to another set of corporations, a sort of lower tier set of corporations, to fund your early treatment medicine, which it's so strange to me. Like, at one point in this conversation, he's talking about how he makes some points, right? Like, I mean, the best way to get a strong central lie of a narrative across is to sprinkle as much truth in as you can, right? And you don't deviate from the truth when the truth could conceivably help your point, even if your point is based in a lie. So he's talking about, earlier in this episode, he's talking about how hospitals, what did I just click there? Nothing. He's talking about how hospitals are trying to prevent him, or lobbying, tried to get his license removed, tried to get his license revoked, because he's creating an early treatment drug for COVID that would prevent people from going to the hospital. And hospitals make money from people going to them. So hospitals are experiencing a boom right now. All those 18-hour shift residents and interns and nurses and everybody who's on staff who is suffering like crazy. Now, maybe, hospital administrators, there are cases where, like, hospital administrators will choose to classify a illness as COVID. So this is true, right? He does say at one point that, like, they're taking people who were shot by a gun. If they die from the gunshot wound and they tested positive for COVID, their cause of death is listed as COVID. That's not true. But there is a bit of there's an incentive for the hospitals to qualify things, or deaths and patients, as being COVID positive. There's a financial incentive for that, which is a little, that's capitalism for you, really. I mean, when we can get rid of capitalism, we could have healthcare for all. That would take care of this in one fell swoop. And you're not going to be able to kind of weed out individual bad actors in a situation like this, right? Like a hospital that is under particular scrutiny. Let's say Princeton Plainsboro in New Jersey, right? House has left, Cuddy has left, Foreman left. Maybe Chase is the new medical director of Princeton Plainsboro. And so he's having funding issues because, Chase is, oh wait, did Chase? I don't know if Chase made it through House. I don't know if he did or not. But anyway, you see my point, right? Like, there are some bad actors who might qualify something as COVID that maybe the cause of death wasn't COVID, but it was complications because of comorbidities. As I've heard, like, plenty of other people say, right? You can't design the medical system for a fictional population. The population of North America is largely pre-diabetic, right? Or close to pre-diabetic. Almost anyone over the age of 40, I mean, really, just being 40 is a comorbidity, really. But so he argues, right, that hospitals are pushing against his extremely effective early treatment for COVID, because hospitals love having COVID patients. They want more and more, and they want as many people on ventilators as possible. Oh, that's
I
two
don't know how we're going to
coughs.
get out of it, but it's got to start with us, all of us, finding common ground.
I think one way we're going to get out of it is by realizing.
Okay, wait a minute. We're about to hear pearls of wisdom. And like looking at him.
What it is. And by the way you just explained it and the way Peter McCullough explained it when he was on the podcast as well, this mass formation psychosis that we're currently experiencing.
Look at that. So Robert Malone posited this idea like 30 seconds ago. Robert Malone posited this idea that, hey, I think this crazy thing that I call mass formation psychosis is something that we're all suffering from. 30 seconds later, Joe Rogan is presenting it as fact. He's not even questioning it. He literally just said, so this thing that we're all suffering from, how do we get past it?
Push a storyline because they're all controlled by the same large funds that Pfizer is, and so is tech.
Keep coughing.
I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but it's got to start with us, all of us, finding common ground.
I think one way we're going to get out of it is by realizing what it is. And by the way you just explained it and the way Peter McCullough explained it when he was on the podcast as well, this mass formation psychosis that we're currently experiencing.
Most people
are unaware that's even happening. All these events take place, and it's this perfect storm of the social media aspect of it, the fact that we are disconnected, the COVID, the separation, the isolation from society, the lockdowns, also coming off of the 4 years of Trump, where we're so polarized politically. And this...
So every once in a while, I feel like Joe Rogan makes a decent point as well. Certainly calling out Trump as a lightning rod for division is a fact.
Become very, not just common, but accepted to other people, to point at the others, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats or the Independents,
it's the
whatever
Republicans. It's the Republicans and the Libertarians, like you, Joe.
Choose
or the unvaccinated.
Or the unvaccinated. That was what I was going to get to. Yeah. And that's one of the things that...
Or the unvaccinated. What the fuck? What the fuck? How do you compare being unvaccinated with your political views, right? Your political views, like the conservative political agenda, is very much at odds with what I believe or what I want, by and large, right? And it can cause harm, right? Like, for instance, with the abortion issue, it can cause a lot of harm to people. But it has to go through a political process to do it. And at the end of the day, at least in that case, we're saying, well, this is the way the system works. And therefore, because the system works this way, we elected Trump. And we have to be like, all right, well, we elected Trump. What are we going to do about it except suffer now, right? There's no, when it comes to being vaccinated or unvaccinated, there's no election that goes on for you to decide whether or not you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. That's you making a decision.
I find very bizarre about the tribal aspect of this is that people want me to get vaccinated. Too. And like my friends who've been vaccinated want me to join the team. Like, go ahead, get the tattoo.
They don't want you to join the team. They don't want you to get the tattoo. They want you not to be, especially look at your job. Look at what you do, Joe. You're meeting new people, more new people every day. You're in front of more new people every day than most anyone, right? I don't care if you had COVID. We all know you can have COVID. You can be triple vaxxed, boosted, quadruple vaxxed, and still get COVID and get like a vaccine escape variant or produce a vaccine escape variant. There are always like these possibilities that could happen, whether they're, common or uncommon or not. But the fact that he's not vaccinated is just inviting the situation where even though he's had COVID and he claims his natural immunity is greater than the vaccine natural immunity or the vaccine immunity that you get. And that's wrong too, because the studies about that have shown that, like, if you get the vaccine in some cases versus Omicron, there's some negative impact because you actually might get infected more likely than if you had natural immunity. But that doesn't take into account behavior at all. And behavior was, for a time, I don't know that it is anymore, but it certainly was for a time. I know that it was this way for me. Like, once I got vaccinated and those 3 weeks went by, I ate at a restaurant outdoors. I wouldn't make that same mistake now. I did it because I got vaccinated. If I hadn't gotten vaccinated, I wouldn't have left my home.
Like, what are you saying? And I'm like, I've gone through the virus. I have immunity. I also have antibodies. I just checked them last week. Like, I could show you the test. As a matter of fact, I have it right here. There it is.
And I had to be tested when I came in the front door at your shop here.
Yep.
So the fact that he's testing everybody that comes in, like, speaks of a little bit. There's a little bit of that hypocrisy there. Like, when it came down to how much he touts his natural immunity, but the first thing he did when he got COVID was he loaded up on all of the monoclonal antibodies,
Test everybody. But the point being is it doesn't make any sense for me to get vaccinated, but they want me to join.
It's worse than that. It puts you at higher risk.
Yes.
Okay? They're asking you to take more risk for your health in order to join their club.
Well, if that were true, that's not what they're asking you to do. They're asking you to take slightly more risk for your health, for the benefit of humanity. Now, I realize that, like, it must be very difficult when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who tell you you're the second coming, which this person is about to do. And there's some really funny sort of compilation clips of people telling Joe Rogan how great he is, echoing everything that he says, being, I think someone was called, like, his backup singer. Everything he would say, Joe Rogan would say, "This is really bad." And the person would be like, "That's the worst. This thing is awesome. It's the awesomest," right? Just kind of talk about an echo chamber, but where the echo gets even louder with every echo.
What it is. And that's what it is. And it's a tribal formation. And it's people who don't have personal sovereignty and people who aren't confident with standing by their own thoughts and objective.
It's people who put the health and well-being of the masses, the greater good. Let's go right back to Star Trek for this. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Joe, you want to live as long as you can, and you don't really care if a few thousand more people die so that you get the treatments you want and can avoid taking the vaccine. There's nobody that I know of who's pro-vaccine, myself included, who is like, there's a chance that 10 years from now, there's going to be some unforeseen side effect to this that, really puts us in a bad way. Maybe we're making the choice. It's very much a choice of self-sacrifice, right? Even just putting aside the fact of, like, how safe it is, which, it's very safe, but it is not completely safe.
Analyzing things outside of an ideology, outside of the tribe. Those people are very susceptible right now, and those are more.
Dude, Joe, you are those people. You are those people.
Common than not.
So, Joe, again, this is.
Oh wait, this is almost at the end here.
Not me buttering you up.
This is you buttering him up.
This is why you're providing such a service to your country and to humanity, because you're one of the few voices that has an audience that is not Democrat or Republican or black or white or vaccinated.
Joe Rogan's audience is not Democrat or Republican or white or black. Please show me the demographics that show African American Democrats watching the Joe Rogan experience by percentage. And like I realize like now I've watched it. So hate watching doesn't count.
Or unvaccinated, all these dipoles that we create artificially. And you are trying to speak to that persuadable middle and do.
No, that is absolutely not what Joe Rogan is doing. Joe Rogan speaks to the outraged. He does not speak to the he 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 speaks to people who are already pushed to the extreme. Like he speaks to people who don't trust the government. He speaks to but it's trust like in a very specific way, right? Like I don't trust the government in most ways. I don't trust pharmaceutical companies to make decisions about my health when it comes to like, I don't think that they're thinking about me when they're making decisions. They're probably weighing a lot of things. And only one of those things is the continued well-being of people. Another one of those things is going to be like, well, you know, we want to treat it. We don't want to cure it because we want some repeat business.
With an open heart and an open mind. And in a world in which all of the information is being so carefully manipulated and pervasively distorted. And,
where you can have a virus on your tie.
I'm grateful, sincerely. My colleagues are grateful. And I think the world should be grateful for your leadership.
Well, I'm very
grateful for Joe Rogan's leadership.
Grateful that there's courageous people like yourself that.
Oh, look, it's just like a mutual masturbation. That's just what I wish we could see under the table.
You put your reputations and your careers on the line by speaking out against this stuff when it is very difficult. And when you do get deplatformed for doing that, they know that by censoring you, they're not just censoring you. They're also making others like you self-censor.
Absolutely. I've been self-censoring for months.
Okay. Let's just leave aside the fact that there's money to be made in being deplatformed by Twitter. There's money to be made in crossing state lines with an AR-15 and killing people. There's money to be made. There's money to be made basically in espousing any extremist ideology and getting pushback for it, because that pushback legitimizes what you're doing in the eyes of people who believe shit like that, which is not me. Anyway, that's what I was watching over the past couple of days. It was less infuriating, to be fair. It was less infuriating than the Jordan Peterson free speech one that I had watched. Maybe because it was the free speech, the Jordan Peterson free speech one was not a dialogue. I guess dialogues are just kind of inherently more interesting than hearing someone kind of pace a stage by himself and kind of go like, you know, all right, let's see. So free speech is important. It's the most important thing we have. If we lose free speech, we've got nothing. People are telling you what you can and can't call people. It's terrifying. It's basically 2 hours of this kind of looping logic coming back to, I feel like he had like maybe 2 or 3 keystone points that he wanted to keep. Anyway, I'm not going into it because I'm looking out for my own best interests here. By the way, y'all are probably going to be upset to hear that my NFT did not take off like I thought it would. So I have a new one. That's right. It is the Akira pill, which, with the Matrix hindsight, half red, half blue, well, pink, but let's call it red. And it's animated. So if you're interested in this NFT, because nobody was interested in my sunglassed fella smoking a pipe NFT, please let me know. As I'm sure you all know, Melania Trump is getting into NFTs, and what is her currency called? Her alternate currency is called Solanas, right? And she just sold something. She sold something, I don't know, was it a hat? She sold something for almost $200,000, the equivalent of $200,000. It was like 1,700 Solanas. It's so interesting to me, even though I'm a little late on cryptocurrency, and I know that. But in a way, I was also really early because alternate currencies, microtransactions, all that those are the bread and butter of MMOs. And it was the key thing when creating, even on Elder Scrolls, when we were creating how to do microtransactions, it was the very first thing you got to do is whatever the currency is, you need to abstract it away from that term. Like when you go to buy something, you're not spending in the US, you're not spending dollars. Okay. You are spending imperiums or whatever it is, right? But as quickly as you can separate somebody from that part of it, like here, that's why you always see right in those games, they're like, well, no, we're not going to let you just kind of go in and buy what you want. First, you have to buy our in-game currency, and then you can use that in-game currency. And some of that in-game currency, sometimes there's different kinds of in-game currency, and some of it will be like if you're doing like a gacha game or something like that, like some of it will be used for gacha pulls, but then there's another type of currency, and the values are different, and that's another tactic to kind of divorce you from the idea of how much am I actually spending when I press this button. This is a very early tenet, but so I could see, I don't even know what it was that Melania sold, but I could see spending 1,700 Solanas on it. $190,000, maybe not so much. But so this is going to be, what should I call my currency? What should I call my currency? Foes? Foites? What's something, what did people use for trade currency on sailing ships? Limes? I don't know, but let's price this at 38 foites. Now, how much is a foite? Doesn't matter. It's only 38 foites. That's all you need to pony up. All right. Haha, very funny. Okay, I'm going to look at some comments here before moving on. First of all, actually, before I move on, I need to get a little feedback. So I used some echo cancellation so that if you notice, my ears are unencumbered this evening. It's lovely. I can pick stuff out of my ears. I don't have to have my in-ear monitors doing things this way. However, so I had sound coming out of my my iMac Pro using echo cancellation. So I'm curious when, say, just for a moment here,
and I saw this headline in the New York Times.
when this is going on,
epidemiologist and a
Forget the fact that the levels are a little bit weird, but are you hearing an echo,
vaccinologist. And
or
the
does this
title was
just sound normal
How You
to
Should
you?
Think
I'm curious.
About Children.
Let's not forget,
more than what we think we deserve.
whatever you pay for this, you get more than what you think you deserve. Thank you, Q. I prefer this. There are times when I'm going to have to use in-ear monitors still, but it's nice. I feel like I'm not worried about the wire going down my back, et cetera, et cetera. So, first week of 2022. Honestly, like, it's been kind of crap. I know I was joking about feeling sick earlier today, but my ex-wife and my son and my daughter all likely have COVID right now. I think my daughter's pretty much over it, and my son was running 103 fever today. And my ex-wife is not feeling very well either. They're all, even my son, who is just a tyke of 7, has had one shot, which he really didn't want. Really did not want that shot. Was really mad at me for it. I'm so glad now that he had it, even though, he would have probably been fine either way, but very glad that he had it. Glad that the ex-wife is boosted, but she's still suffering. Like, it's, she's describing it as, feeling as sick as she's ever felt in her life. So, it's not like magic, right? The vaccines are not magic. That was some coincidence right there. Should we do some magic here tonight? Can I do some magic? Do you all know this one? How to make you take the stuff it in your hand, stuff in there really, really tight, really, really good. Crush it, almost like crush it into non-existence. Ta-da! It's gone. I didn't even have to use the magic wand. Y'all know that one? Yeah, that was just coincidence. But anyway, yeah, they're not doing so well. So that's been shitty because I can't do anything. Like, I'm just kind of stuck, hoping that everything goes well, or as well as can be expected. You saw what? Really, I have small thumbs, so like I have small fingers, so the fake and I have, well, actually it's not that bad about here, right? If I'm moving pretty quick, I think it helps more if my thumb is, actually no, it doesn't help if my thumb is bent from the camera view. Anyway, guys, I hate to spoil it for you, but done with that. Just done with the fake thumb. I got another one. See if I can do this. Probably can't. Can I show it on this camera? How y'all doing? I feel like this is the camera where I can. Here, wait, let's get really close. this is the camera where I share secrets, and where you really can get a good sense of the size of my nose. It's big. Right. So, okay, what I got here is a tube. I got a tube with it's got one cap, and it's got another cap. It's not really in focus, right? So, but then it's the thing about it that's awesome is it's got this magic ring here, right? So I could take these two caps, and then I can. Oh wait, I guess I gotta make sure that it's in frame as I'm doing that. Take the two caps and then put this magic ring in the middle of the two caps, and then. Oh, I gotta hit this hard though. Can I hit it hard on my hand? I don't know if that's gonna work, but anyway, well, I could take a cap, right, and then slam it down. Doesn't do anything. It's not working. It's not working the way it's supposed to work. I guess it's supposed to work. I'm supposed to just go. This is a mess. I'm forgetting the trick. Hold on. Let me figure this out. Oh shit. Yeah, this is really one where you need hard surfaces, and you need to hit. Oh, I forgot I was on this camera. Anyway, so I can't show you that. So I'm gonna go back to the other camera. Look at the tint difference. This one looks less saturated, and the skin is not as pink. Skin's much more pink there. So, yeah, 2022 has not been great. How has 2022 been for all of you? I'm curious. Yeah, thank you for this, Interstellar Sea Cow. Well, there was the first snow of the year, and it was something else. It was quite a snow. I guess this is whatever. Am I doxing myself? Come at me. I don't care. The view out my front door. This is the view out my front door. Now, what's kind of hard to tell there is, what you see there are two, it's like a patio, and there's an entryway there. Like that's the main way to get into the house. And you see that tree became laden with wet snow and fell right between. The only way that I could get in and out of the house, basically. So I had to spend a fair amount of time yesterday getting the snow off the tree, trimming it back, kind of trying to push it back up, hold it back up. Got lots of, you could probably see them when you were in close-up mode. I was wearing gloves, but I still got, lots of little cuts. But, you can see my neighbor's house there. The across the street neighbor. not a fan. I'm not a fan. Wait. I'm not a fan of the guy who lives in that house. I mean, he has a wife and a child, but he just like ignores me. Like I will kind of like look over if I see him and like kind of wave or whatever, and he doesn't even. He acts like he doesn't see me, like he doesn't know that I'm there. But I know that he does know. So he's like playing some kind of game. I don't like it. He will sometimes in spring and summer put an easel out on his patio right next to the door and paint. I hope he's not painting my house because it's not very picturesque. Really, like not in any way. So I don't know what he's painting when he does that. I just know he ignores me. His wife ignores me. They think I'm weird, which, to be fair, they're not wrong. Anyway, okay, let's get out of the whisper cam. Yeah, so 4 inches of snow, I'd say, something like that. And then it turned freezing overnight, and the road going from DC to Richmond, which is, usually, 80 miles, something like that. It's always a pain in the ass. Like whenever you're driving up from, say, Florida, and you hit Richmond, Virginia, you're like, wow, I'm in an hour or two, I'll be in DC. It's never the case. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. That stretch of 95 is always a problem, but there was such a problem with ice and trucks that there were people who were stranded on that stretch of road for 24 hours overnight when it was well below freezing overnight. I read about a woman and her children who basically begged an ambulance to sleep in the ambulance because they ran out of gas and they were freezing. But then I also read, the heartwarming stories about Schmidt's bakery truck, a Baltimore-based bakery truck who was also stuck, and they distributed their bread to those who were stuck on that stretch of 95. There's opportunities for no one died. I was shocked. I thought there would at least be like a couple of deaths resulting from that, and nobody died, not even of COVID in those cars. But how are yours New Year's? Well, the British aren't the British Navy, that's why Britain is ruled for as long as it did. It's because of their Navy. That's the history as I understand it. An island with a strong Navy, small island, small population, strong ass Navy, end up owning most of the world. Okay, let me get down here so I can see what people are actually talking about right now. Oh, is this true, Nico? Well, I don't know about that because, technically, Motrin, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, I've heard that's not a good thing for COVID. I don't know, but I'm not up on the data. It doesn't make me feel better. Yeah, my ears grow too. I think the solution to that is to go ahead and get double O's, right? So you can make it look like it was intentional. Hey, I resemble that remark. Big noses are cool. All right, so far so good. You've been sick for days. Colorful dreams. Do you know if it's COVID? Choke on a fishbone. That's the worst, man. Being from where I am, I have choked on a fishbone. It's terrible. Terrible. And I think I felt like it was there for days, even after it was gone. Oh, I hope your parents are okay. That's really the fear here, right? It's like for most people, it's there were holidays, people saw other people, and now we are reaping the illness that we have sown. I like this, Lexi. Just kind of a ambivalent. I saw, I guess it was just a tweet, but was it a tweet or a little comic strip, Instagram, where it was, the moment I realized that 2022 can be written as 2022, like a movie, 2020 Part 2. I like that you're always looking out for me doxing myself, but I'm probably not going to be in this house much longer. In fact, I'm definitely not going to be in this house much longer. I live where I live largely because of the reduction or removal of the commute. That doesn't exist now. I don't have a commute. So I am paying to live somewhere for a reason that does not exist. No, they've cleared everybody off. Well, I probably won't answer the door. You'll have to break in. I agree with this, Anu 742. I much prefer to just be like, you do your stuff, I do my stuff. Leave me alone. Ava, this would be I think this would do very well. My last ASMR video was, you can see the backdrop is still there, was the Night Watchman. I don't know what I do with the lantern. What do I do with the lantern? There's real lamp oil in it, so I'd be careful with that thing. It'll just go anywhere. I thought I had it on one of these shelves. If it's somewhere and it falls over, look at that. Without a wire, no in-ear monitors, I can just spin till I'm dizzy. Anyway, that video did very well by my new low standards. It was, my number one video out of the last 10, which just goes to show, like, if you set the bar low enough, eventually you will come out over the bar. But I want to do more videos like that. There is okay, here's what's going to end up happening, I think. This is a prediction, a bit of possible future insight into what I'm going to do. So, as you all know, there are things for cameras called gimbals. Right? You put a camera on a gimbal, it can orient the X, Y, and Z axes to remove any kind of shake. I have one with like a little tiny inbuilt camera. I don't use it very much. I used it for a video walking through the woods once. And I thought it did fine. And the camera quality was not great, so I just wasn't that into it because of that. But you can have gimbals that you put on cameras now that are like the Blackmagic that I'm using right now, handle it very well. They're also integrated more recently, like within the past year, with a focusing and tracking system that uses LiDAR, which this is a wonderful little dividend paid for probably by Apple in their never-ending search for how to scan your face and get that data. So anyone who's used a camera with manual focus knows, well, I'm going to show you what everyone using a camera with manual focus knows. Let's see if I can do this remotely. Like Blackmagic cameras, like the one I'm using right now. Is it going to give me this ability to change this here? Probably not. Not remotely, huh? I gotta go up to it. That's fine. I can go up to it. Would have been done already had I chosen to do that. Okay, be right back. What I'm doing right now is changing my monitor setting so you can see my focus assist. In the signal going out to you all. So you saw the grill of the microphone become covered in red dots. And you can see not very much of me. There you go. So this is the kind of focus assist system that you would use. In my case, I would usually focus on my hair, my beard, because that kind of lets you know what's in focus and what's not. I move back here. It's gone. This is a great example. Anywhere where you would normally have moiré, and as it goes back and out of focus, it becomes less red, more red as it gets closer. Same with my hair and beard. So that's a kind of a typical way that you might use focus or achieve focus, right? If you're manually pulling focus. So everybody knows what LiDAR is, right? It's radar, but instead of using sound, it uses light. So it shoots a photon out, it tags that photon either by polarizing it in some way. I'm actually not sure how it identifies what photon it sent out, and times the amount of time that it takes for the photon to get back to the sensor, and then uses that to say, okay, I'm this far away from that thing. So you combine that with AI, ML, and object tracking or face recognition. And you can have an external focus system using LiDAR that will be able to autofocus regardless of light, because it generates its own light. You can't see it. It's infrared. I believe it's in the infrared spectrum. But so it allows you to kind of focus in these low light, difficult situations. Let me get rid of the... It's starting to get annoying. John, should you turn on false color? All right. So one of the things I loved about collaborating was the ability to have dynamic shots. And right now I can't. Obviously, my frame is locked off. Here it is. Whether in an ASMR video, what I've been doing a little bit lately is I'll have two cameras, one with a longer focal length that is more focused on like a part of where I'm using the objects, and one that is framed something like this, right? I'll then take that image, the lower image, and I'll upscale it to, almost twice the size of the frame. And I'll using trap code, I'll apply something that's like handheld camera movement to it. If you want to see an example of this, you can watch the control video I did a couple months ago, where that's what I was doing. I was switching between two static cameras, one of which had its frame upscaled and slowly moving. So it kind of looked like someone was holding it. The ultimate goal here would be to have a camera on a gimbal, on a tripod, tracking either my face, in the case of, one of these cameras, right? Or my hands, holding what I'm holding. And using LiDAR to pull focus on these very, very manual focus lenses, right? And their manual focus largely because they have such shallow depth of field. I'm sure they exist somewhere, but generally, you don't find lenses with less than an f1.2 that are autofocus. And y'all know I like my shallow depth of field. But what's exciting to me about this, as I've been looking into this, and it was kind of spawned by the Ronin 4D that came out a couple of months ago, which is a gimbal with a camera built into it that incorporates the Z-axis by using LiDAR sensors on the bottom of the camera. Check this out. You're holding the camera. I'm holding the camera. It's got LiDAR sensors on the bottom that are constantly monitoring its height off the ground. So if I go like this a little bit, it has an arm extending out with the camera on it, and like a chicken's head. This doesn't show it very well, but imagine my arm is attached. It'd be like this, right? It just will always keep the camera at the same height, regardless of how I move. Most gimbals, they'll adjust for roll and yaw, but they can't fix this. Like, you can't tell a regular gimbal, like, hey, if I go up and down, like everybody does when they're walking, fix that. You can do a little bit with software. The Ronin 4D does it with hardware. And I was amazed by it. And it also used the LiDAR focus to show you a top-down version of what you're focusing on. So literally, like, instead of those little red dots that you were seeing, it's like a histogram that's a map. Something like this. So if I were using LiDAR to do focus on me right now, you'd see something like this. That's probably hard to tell what I'm trying to illustrate there. But imagine the camera is here, shooting out its photons. There's my nose. It's the closest thing on my face to the camera. Here, this is supposed to be the arm of the microphone here. It will show you this, updating in real time. It will show you this top-down representation of what its LiDAR senses are seeing as in focus or not in focus. And you can kind of choose like what you want to stay in focus or not. So imagine a system like that statically mounted to a tripod. Excuse me. Okay, CDC is now recommending 12 and over get the Pfizer. And imagine a set that doesn't fall apart the moment the camera turns. Imagine a set that is a room. And then imagine just kind of being able to, for me, to kind of walk around it and have the camera follow me. Now, I know people have done these 360 cameras. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it would be the equivalent of having somebody holding the camera, focusing, manually pulling focus on me or whatever it is that I'm doing as I move around. That kind of dynamism. Walking away from the camera. I do that sometimes, like in some videos, I will walk away towards, and hopefully the camera I have now is fairly decent at grabbing focus there. But what it doesn't do is move, right? It just focuses. The frame stays the same. So the only real question I have, one is, I already know the answer to this, is how much is that going to cost me? What's the return? I don't really know. How loud are these gimbals? Like, as a rule, I know they're fairly loud. The ones I've used have a pretty distinct high-pitched whine that would not be great for ASMR. However, if I put a long focal length lens on the camera, then I could be, 3 meters away from the camera. That might be far enough where the noise wouldn't be an issue. I mean, like right now, this is going to be a catastrophe. This light, I love that light. It does have a fan and it does make noise. The monitor I'm using right now does have a fan and does make noise. So there would be, some possible sacrifices to be made. But I'm thinking this is something that excites me and makes me want to try it and see if I can shoot videos with it. Now, is it the kind of thing where, like with the gimbal, I'll shoot one video with it and then never do it again? God, I hope not, because this would be quite an investment. Oh my God, there's still people watching after all that. Yeah, where would I move? New England is wonderful. However, it's cold. I hate the cold. And I probably ultimately got to be near my kids. What I'm thinking is DC proper. So, urban living. There are pros and cons associated with that. But a lot of pros, especially for someone like me who is antisocial and will use any excuse to get out of going anywhere. If I can just step outside of my row house or apartment or whatever it is and walk down to the corner, and there might be a gathering place, a nice restaurant or a bar or what have you. That would be great. When I lived in DC, I did do a lot more of that. That's just the bottom line. And I realize with COVID it's different, but another possibility is Brooklyn, or even Manhattan, but probably Brooklyn. I know a lot of people that live there. I would be away from my kids, but I think living the Acela Express train from here to there is very, very fast and runs all the time. And I've taken it and I actually enjoy it. That's the train that goes like 140 miles an hour and will get you from Baltimore to New York in like 2 hours, which is amazing. It's amazing for U.S. trains. Any other country, it's just like a train that goes 130 miles an hour. So what? Like everybody has that. Right? U.S. doesn't have that except in a few specific areas. And one area where it has that is the Acela line, which goes from D.C. all the way up to Boston, that corridor of New England commuters. So Brooklyn is a possibility. And then the other possibility is down south. So those are all things that I'm thinking about in my noggin. There are work knock-on effects from that. There are family knock-on effects from all that. So for now, my lease is until June. I have 6 months. Well, really, I have like 4 months to think about it. Hey, Flaglow. Oh, you came at a good time. All right, let's go down here to the bottom. Oh, Amy, how are you doing? And yes, I am as sad as anyone else about Betty White. It's not her duty to live to be 100 years old to make us all feel good about ourselves. But I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what... She seemed pretty lucid. She did an interview just like the day before she died or 2 days before she died or something. So I don't think it was a case where the question of her quality of life was that big, which is pretty remarkable for 99. That means I can go through my midlife crisis next year. I've been looking for an excuse. Maddie, you just threw up spicy pepper. It was the most confusing experience. What was confusing about it? Because when you throw up, it burns. I imagine if you throw up something spicy, it burns more. It was pretty hot. I'm sorry, radar, right? Radio frequency. Sorry. Point is, LiDAR uses light. Yeah, sonar sound. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I misspoke. Oh, and good night, Maddie. Maddie's now gone. Hopefully she doesn't throw up again. All right. Going down in the bottom here. Uh-oh. This would require plane travel, wouldn't it? I hear. As soon as there's an international train, I'm coming over there. Well, I would, yeah, obviously, like one of the problems would be sound. And if I did that, soundproofing would have to be something that I'm more concerned about than I am now. But I'll tell you what, like when it comes to ASMR videos, I'm really not like, I'm saying this, but, in a situation where it's like people screaming and dogs barking, although I have dogs barking all the time. In the Night Watchman video, I think about like 2 minutes in, the neighbor's dog just started barking like crazy. But I made it fit in. I was like, oh, let's see if I can make it seem like I added that dog bark in post, when really it was just like me being like, damn it, that dog is barking. Yeah, Carolyn lives in Brooklyn. It's pretty amazing the number of transplants from Florida who moved to Brooklyn. In a way, it would be like a little reunion. No, I've learned never to make these compromises because then I just never do them. Like right now, I live 5 miles away from DC, but I almost never go to DC because that 5 miles is enough. I mean, most likely it's probably going to be, oh yeah, boat. Come by ship. Boat. Talk about a great way to get COVID. Oh. do you have enough bridges, or is where you live completely surrounded by a river? Encircled by a river or series of rivers? And if so, can you in one unbroken line go over every bridge and back? No, it doesn't. See, this is the idiocy that is me. Is like, there's no obstacle too small. Like, just getting into my car, and, I'm so easily dissuaded from doing stuff. This is why, like, I need like this live stream setup to be as easy for me to do as possible. Like, I really, if there was an obstacle, I would use it as an excuse not to do it. It's why it's as streamlined as it is. Now, I mean, you could say, like, well, maybe the problem there is you need to work on you. And that would be accurate. I do need to work on me. But I'm also at an age now where it's like, if I keep waiting for the me work to work, probably going to be too late. And I just I feel like I need a change. Vienna is not nice, Katerina. At least, I mean, it's just suburbia. I mean, I basically live in Vienna right now. Like, that's pretty much where I am. I was thinking about it, Q, but now you have dissuaded me. But yeah, all my ideas about Europe are just incredibly simplistic, like childish sort of ideas of, if you opened one of those geography books that had, maps of the world and simple pictures representing each spot. That's what's in my head. So, Brittany, you're 100% right, Mari. This is one of my faults as a human being generally, is like, when it comes to friends, I sort of push friends away, and I end up relying on whomever my partner is. And if my partner is not an extrovert and or pushing me to do stuff, then stuff doesn't really get done. Although I will say, like, even having an introvert as a partner still do a lot more than solo. Someone from Iowa, he never visits, and that's a reason not to go there. Maybe he loves Iowa so much that he never wants to leave. We could have just like we could meet somewhere, let's say Belgium. We could all meet in Belgium. Could we take the Calais coach and do like a Murder on the Orient Express? Go from Calais. Where does it? It goes from Calais all the way to, I don't know. I forget where the Orient Express ends. It's right on, Alex. It's very difficult. I've recently joined Meetup, which is it's not really an app. I guess it is an app, but it's just sort of tries to organize get-togethers for groups of people in your area with specific interests. I've yet to do one of the things, but I've seen a few that I thought might be a good idea and almost signed up for them. What else do I have to talk about tonight? Not a lot. I can tell you this, though. I don't know if I've shared this with everybody, but I have played over the past month a shit ton of Deathloop. I mean, a lot of Deathloop. And I finished it 2 nights ago. And by finished, I mean I completed a cycle completely successfully. The goal in Deathloop is there are these, I won't get into like all the details, but there are these 8 visionaries who are causing time to repeat at the end of every day. You have to kill all 8 of them in one day before it loops. It's impossible to do when the game starts, but as you go through the game, you put different events in motion that cause the visionaries to be in places where you can murder them all within one day. So like you can't get to one of the visionaries because they're locked in a bunker, right? But you do something that draws them out at this particular time of day, or you can access this one person at this time of day over here. But if you do that, it means you miss this other person over here. So you got to do something that brings them together or delays this person from doing what it is that they're doing when they come out. So you can do this thing first and then do this thing. So it's basically just like, it's like a meta puzzle game on top of a shooter. It got great reviews, but then it got like a lot of backlash about it not being very good. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. And some of the reasons that like I thought I loved it were the very reasons that other people were ragging on it. Like there were a lot of people who were saying, so the way it works is there's only maybe 4 levels. And then there's 4 different times of day that you can go to any of those levels. And they change somewhat. I think somewhat significantly. So you really have like, I wouldn't say you have 16 levels, but you have, the equivalent of maybe it's 8 levels worth of content all told, the things that unlock on different times of day based on the level that you go to. But the story, I just thought the story was so well done. The voice acting was so well done. And one of the things that people complained about was that when you go to a place at a given time of day, time does not progress until you go to the next place. So if I go to, let's say, Updam, which is one of the places, in the afternoon, which is its block of time, the blocks of time are morning, noon, afternoon, evening. I could just sit there forever and time won't advance until I complete, or I don't have to complete anything. I either have to die or I have to leave, and then time moves forward to the next increment. It reminded me a lot of The Last Express by Jordan Mechner, which I know I've talked about and extolled the virtues of. And I loved the mechanic. I just loved that because it gave you the freedom to explore, but you still had like these kind of one, like if you die 3 times, the day loops, so you can't die, right? Or you lose the day if you're in the middle of doing something, right? And you have to kill 8 visionaries in one day, and you could say kill 7 of them, and then in the evening you miss killing the 8th one, or you die trying to kill the 8th one, and then you have to start all over again. It sounds very frustrating, but I was amazed at the fact that I did not grow tired of it. It was very much like hey, get to know all the ins and outs of these levels. If you're the kind of person who just kind of runs through a level once in a linear narrative game, that's not what this is. You're going to be going through these areas a bunch of times, and you're going to have motivation for doing so. So might as well learn the ins and outs. So it encouraged me to do that, which I loved. The only I don't know that I didn't love it, but like almost any game, if I'm enjoying it, I really don't want to do the thing that sets off the final sequence, right? So like in Mass Effect, I remember there's one quest that you do, and it's basically like, yeah, once you go to this star system, like basically you're going to be locked in here and be going towards the end of the game. Are you sure you want to do that? I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Even when I would play Skyrim, I would be like, well, I don't want to finish that main quest thing. I don't want to do that. I just want to keep kind of going around and doing all this other crap. So by the time I was like, all right, I guess I got to do the final speed run, I was so overpowered that it was actually fun because I'm not very good at action games, as you all probably know. So it made me feel very skilled to have these powers that I was very good at working at that point, to have these levels that I knew the level design in and out on them by that point, and to basically just be like OP, like seriously OP, for the final day. And it has a bit of like that winking kind of self-referential thing going on when you're doing that, in that you have a nemesis whose name is Juliana. You play as Colt. Maybe I'm kind of spoiling something for somebody, but you'd have to be. I don't think this is spoiling really. I just look, when you're playing any game or narrative where you're playing someone who doesn't know their history, you don't have to have someone related to you as another main character. Like, can we please just like fucking drop that? It's so overused and brings nothing to the table. That's my broad statement. If you didn't know that Colt and Juliana were in some way related the first time, the very first 5 minutes of the game, then I don't know, maybe you've never watched a movie, or it was very, very obvious to me. I think they actually did a pretty good job with it. Arcane is really, really good with story. But I don't feel like they needed that. What was I saying? So yeah, so you're going up against, it did that kind of referential self-treatment where when you're going through that final day, Juliana is being like, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this thing. She keeps popping up. And on the PS5, it's quite entertaining because she speaks to you just through the controller speaker. So you have the game sound going on over here, and all of a sudden you hear her saying, hey, Colt, don't do that thing. It's very much like Grover and the monster at the end of this book. Grover saying, don't turn the page. There's a monster at the end of this book, and you turn the page. Juliana was quite a bit like that. So anyway, spent a lot of time with Deathloop. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed like being able to turn people against each other. There is a game designer in Deathloop, one of the visionaries. He creates a game for people to go through. It's fun to kind of commandeer that game. They had some interesting mechanics there. There were some things I didn't like. I didn't really like how they limited you to two powers. The only way you could change powers was when you left before going back in to another zone at another time of day. And I understand that caused you to like choose very strategically what you were doing. But at some point I was just like, I'm already OP. I just want to have fun. I want to be able to do all of this stuff. If you're worried about balance, you should have stopped worrying about that 30 hours ago when this game became, just a shooting gallery for me, basically. But apart from that, I thought it was really good. The ending was underwhelming, but what game doesn't have an underwhelming ending apart from, BioShock and a select few others. It's actually, yeah, I like saying it. I get it. It doesn't seem like a great idea, or like how would it work, or how would it be beneficial. But it's very much like a walkie-talkie. Sounds like a walkie-talkie. The haptic feedback on the PS5 controllers are great as well. So when you're pulling those triggers and they're fighting against you, it feels pretty darn good. Visceral. Prey comes to mind. I just got Prey, being Arcane's last game. I remember Prey. I remember when I worked at ZeniMax, going to one of our town halls, which we would have in this kind of big movie theater auditorium at the main development space. We all would get together and we'd watch what all of the different development teams were doing, because we had development teams not just in Bethesda, but Arcane had France and Texas, and we had id Software, and Human Head at one point was doing Prey. But I remember seeing like the demo for Prey before Arcane took over, when it was like a bounty hunter game. And it looked very much like what kind of Cyberpunk ended up being, except it was more bounty hunter based, but it had a very cyberpunky feel to it, Blade Runner-y feel. I was so excited about that. And that was 2009, maybe. But the Prey that eventually came out, I now have, and that's my next game. Unless anybody has some suggestions. By the way, I've gotten no bids. No bids. Perfect name. Phonies. Phonies. That's my alternative currency. So this is 17 phonies. That's what it's going for. How could I not have thought of that already? That's it. That's my alternative currency. You all need to buy phonies. There's nowhere for them to go but up. You want to see the back? You want to see the back of this? It's the same, both sides. It's just, let's see the Divoom. But it's not this that's worth the money. And it's not even the pixels that are worth the money. It's like the combination of it. It's ineffable. It's not fungible. And it's also not effable. 17 phonies. Yeah, well, that's a good way to think of it. I mean, life is a game, right? So dollars are alternative currency to the British pound anyway. There's some people here I'm not familiar with. Hi, Saint Row Cheats. I played Saints Row. Why would you cheat that? Ooh, Prey is story heavy and brilliant. That sounds like something I want to play more. I have it. I have it downloaded. I just haven't started it. I will start it as soon as this stream is ended. Oh man, Q, no. Those aren't phonies. That's real money. But Q, yeah, you know better. Oh my God, and Nico too. Oh, Nico. If I was given the resources, team, and Klonopin to produce my own game, what direction would you take it in? Well, I have always been a sucker for time manipulation games. Before, what started my obsession with time manipulation games was probably The Last Express. And yeah, in that game, you could literally just bring up your pocket watch and rewind it whenever you wanted. The game took place of this sort of repeating couple of hours. And within that time period, you had to accomplish a certain number of things. And if you weren't in the right place at the right time, you were effed. I mean, I've had lots of ideas for games that have not come to fruition, and a couple that have. I was always into point-and-click adventure games. That's why I lobbied so heavy to get the license for the Agatha Christie games. I've told this story 100 times, I know, but the place I was working at, I asked the CEO for, he was not interested in the license at all. So I asked him for a few resources for a weekend, which I know the weekend, getting people to work on the weekend sucks. I was younger. This was 20 years ago. Almost. Got people to create a demo to show to, at the time it was the Adventure Company, who owned the license to all the Agatha Christie books. So we could do murder mysteries. And then we did 3 of them. We did 3 of those games in quick succession with like a team of 6 people. Very few people. But yeah, so I've had ideas for things like 12 minutes. I sort of had this idea of like, somebody breaks into your house. This is before 12 minutes. This is years ago. Somebody breaks into your house and you have to get yourself and your family to escape. And it would be strategy where you set everything up and then you just hit play and it goes, right? So you can go into like your different rooms, plan out like your route of escape. You don't know what the enemy is going to do or enemies. And then you see where it fails and then you try again. But maybe it's not set in stone what the enemy does. So it becomes like a sort of cat and mouse game, and it would be, progressing levels of difficulty, and you would just rewind, try again. Maybe you wouldn't have to rewind all the way to the beginning, etc., stuff like that. But nothing revolutionary unless you're talking about a revolution of the hands of a clock. No, I'm sorry that you work weekends, Indigo. I'm very anti working weekends, very pro work-life balance, and I would not do that same thing today. Man, I can remember like back in the 90s briefly working on a proof of concept for a game that was AR in a way. It was basically like where you were, the room was your playboard. And the idea was we triangulated your position, and we're able to feed that. There was a piece of hardware, right, that was in development. This was at Capstone. And you would have to kind of move where you wanted to move, and there would be invisible obstacles that you would only get feedback via your computer terminal. Weird stuff like that. But if I had unlimited resources, I mean, I'm I'm such a lore and like story hound gourmand, and I love idiosyncratic questing, and I like linear narrative games. That's probably the direction I would go. It's funny I mentioned. Let's see if I can bring this up. Since we're just kind of off the rails here, so let's. I mentioned Jordan Mechner and time games, and I was watching something where he was talking about limitations. Here we go. Here it is. Okay, and so this was Prince of Persia. Let's see, can we do this? Let's see if we can pull this off live. Even if it doesn't work, guess what?
More than what we think we deserve.
I don't know if this is going to work. This is dangerous. What's up? How do I do this? Does that seem to be working? Oh my God. I think it's working.
I developed a storyline for Shadow Man. He comes back at predetermined moments through the game. There's one point where he steals a potion. Just as you're about to reach it, Shadow Man comes running in, drinks it, and runs off. There's another moment where you're about to get through a gate. Shadow Man walks up, steps on the pressure plate, and closes the gate. At that point, you fall back down 3 levels, and you're going to have to work your way back up.
Okay. Oh, good night, Elxie. So let's see if I can get an overlay in here too. God forbid you don't see my face for one moment. No, that's not going to work. There's got to be a way. No, that's not it. I know there's a way to do this. Were I prepared? There we go. However, I don't want it to use this camera. All right. We're doing this live in real time. Okay. So what he's talking about here is Prince of Persia, which was the follow-up to Karateka, which was one of my favorite games for the Apple II when I was a kid. It's amazing to me how far ahead of its time this game was. I'm going to skip around a bit.
These encounters were scripted to make you hate Shadow Man and see him as your enemy, so that by the time you face him with crossed swords at the end of the game, you really want to get this guy because he's set you back so many times. It's a way to build an emotional relationship between the player and an opponent through the actual gameplay rather than just telling it.
So what he's talking about there are just like, those are standard, nothing's changed, right? But it's the actual development of Shadow Man that's interesting, and how it's proof that like interesting things can come out of limitations that you might never be able to think of otherwise, and that sometimes working within a very, very tight framework can cause you to be more creative.
In a cinematic. Hi, I'm Jordan Mechner, creator of Prince of Persia. This is how I animated myself into a corner and had to fight my way out.
I'm gonna watch this whole thing. So Jordan Mechner is the guy that did Prince of Persia, he did Karateka, and he did The Last Express, which is, as I mentioned, like one of my favorite games.
So I was a kid in New York in the mid-'70s. I was into comics, I loved movies, I grew up on Mad Magazine, and if computers hadn't come along...
Let's skip
story. The princess has been kidnapped by the evil warlord who's taken her to his castle. And so as the hero...
So at the time, like, this was rotoscoped. He rotoscoped stuff. Unheard of. Like, we're talking about sprites that are like 40 pixels high and have 2 or 3 colors. This was leaps and bounds ahead of anything else. Like, in terms of, even when I watch this now, like, I can feel the movement. I can feel the weight. I can feel like the animation is still doing its job in a way that, like, say, in Lode Runner, it's not.
You have to fight a series of karate battles with the warriors who are guarding the fortress.
So this is
basically running from left to
karateka.
right. You fight one warrior after another until you reach
You
the
just
end, and then you fight
fight.
the big bad guy and rescue.
And then he went on to do Prince of Persia. Let's skip ahead a little bit here. Obviously,
Inspired by The 1001 Nights.
a lot
and
more
by,
ornate.
Movies like the 1940 Thief of Baghdad, in which an evil Grand Vizier has seized power and imprisoned the princess. For Prince of Persia, I knew I was going to need so much more animation. Running, jumping, climbing, falling, all the movements that the little character would have to do on screen. And by the time I did the animation for Prince of Persia in '85, a new technology had come along, VHS. So
Yeah,
using
this
one
was
of the
after,
early VHS
Another World
cameras,
was after,
videotaping
and I think it
my
was by
brother
the same
running
company.
and jumping and doing all those things in the
And was just
parking lot
taken
across the
directly
street
from
our
what
high
Jordan
school.
Mechner was doing. Another World was very good too, but it was definitely, that was built on Jordan Mechner's
And then
pen.
the problem was how to get these videotaped frames into the computer. After a bit of trial and error, the technique that I finally settled on for Prince of Persia was a kind of a analog to digital to analog
This is
to
insane.
digital. It involved several steps.
This is
I
insane.
took the videotape of my brother and put that on a TV screen in a darkened room, put a 35mm film camera on a tripod, aimed it at the TV screen, and then took a picture. Did a frame advance on the VCR, took another picture. Frame advance, frame advance, frame advance. Then I took that roll of film containing about 35 frames down to the local photomat, the 1-hour photo, had the film developed, and then got back a sheaf of snapshots, which I then scotch taped together, and using a Sharpie and whiteout, highlighted the outlines of each character, then put that...
He went from video to film to printing out. The only thing I don't know is, like, Polaroids were around at this time. Like, I feel like he could have saved a step here by using a Polaroid camera to get these printouts.
on a Xerox machine and came out with one clean sheet of paper with a series of frames of a clean white character against a black background. So that contrast was sharp enough that I could then put that piece of paper on an animation stand, pointed a video camera at it, and ran that into the Apple II, which had no video in. This was a special digitizer card that could get one clean still image. It couldn't
Good
capture
Lord.
motion, but
Look at, do you see what that said there? High resolution, 256 by 256 picture element scan.
digitizer card that could get one clean still image. It couldn't capture motion. But once I had that sheet of 9 or 12 individual frames of the character, I could then go in pixel by pixel and cut them out on screen using my animation tool.
I mean, you have to remember here, right? Like the memory that the Apple II had, was it 32K? It wasn't 64K. I think it was 32K. And he's talking about like hand-drawn sprites here. Those things take a lot of RAM. And that eventually, like, that is the problem that he ran into was, so I'm just going to kind of sum it up a little bit so we don't have to watch this whole thing. But he ran into the problem that he was going for, his previous game had been all combat. This game was all puzzle solving. But someone else in his development team, every time she would walk by, she would be like, it needs combat. It needs combat. It needs combat. And his response was, I don't have the memory to create the frames that I would need for there to be combat. So, and then he had a sort of eureka moment where he realized that, like, wait a minute, there is an operator that anyone who's done any degree of programming or even used Photoshop knows about the exclusive OR. If you use Photoshop, you have layers. You can have lighten, darken. You can have multiply, screen. But some of these are base level operators. and one of those is exclusive OR. Sorry. So he realized if you ran an exclusive OR, say on a white pixel, it would be black, right? If you ran it on a pixel that was, if this was middle gray, if you ran it on a pixel that was, this is white, this is middle gray, you ran it on this pixel, it would be this pixel, right? It essentially flips the value of a pixel, but in a binary way. So he realized that he could use this operator and then use all the frames for the hero and just apply this exclusive. What he did was he applied the exclusive order to the character and then shifted one pixel over to the left or right. It didn't matter. But the point was you still had then the outline of the character because there was one row of pixels that the exclusive order was not being applied to. So he didn't need to have new sprites. He could just use the sprites that he already had for the hero, and that hero could now be the Shadow Man and do everything that the enemy needed to do. I thought that was brilliant. Pretty flippin' brilliant. Oh, hi, Leah. How are you doing? It's good to see you. What have you been up to, Leah? Been talking about maybe moving to Brooklyn. Yeah, right. See? Yeah. Yeah. But imagine like that's what it could scan. But the sprites were maybe 40 pixels. This, again, 17 phonies. This is 32 pixels. 32 by 32. So 8 pixels more than that. I enjoy pixel art. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but I still enjoy it. Well, I don't know. I'm moving, certainly. Yeah. But like where I am right now, a suburb of DC, like there's nothing. Nothing. No, you're right. Well, it could be. It depends on the pixel density because these are pretty big. Pretty big. In fact, I'd say, right. Well, it's more than 32 pixels. Yeah, significantly more. And on top of it, for some reason, I'm not sure why they did this. Well, I guess they did it to increase the distinction, but you can see that each pixel is vignetted. So they don't look, they look like little cushions, little square cushions. Is anybody going to go into have a seizure because of this? How long can I leave that up there? Look at that bokeh. Look at that. Real or fake? Fake. Let's do a smooth focus pull while I look off into the distance. It's so vain. Like this entire enterprise is so vain. Making videos for YouTube is so vain. ASMR videos are exercises in vanity. Life. Well, there's a way you can take the thing away from me, Pivy, and that would be 17 phonies. How is it powered? You can find out the answer to that yourself. for the low price. No, it does has a USB-C port here. The battery is actually really good. Let's see where it is. Oh, I'm down 1. So I'm at like 90%. It's been going for, I think it'll go for like 4 or 5 hours. And well, I'm not at full brightness because if I go to full brightness, it blows out. So I have it. I don't really want to disclose that. I'd like to keep that. That's a surprise for both you and your bank account. And this is probably true. Anyway. So yeah, that's been my week. I have a lot going on at work. There's a decent possibility I won't be able to do this next week, but we'll see. I think I might just call it a night. We have a night where I didn't have anyone call in or anything. Jesus, Indigo. I gotta do that. I'm glad that you all dropped by. It's always good to see everybody. I don't know how this is going, right? But I'm enjoying the kind of more laid back format of just do whatever. I would like to know what your thoughts are on the tracking mechanism that I'm thinking of embarking on. It's going to be a journey, right? Like I'm going to have to get the LiDAR sensor, the follow focus motors, the gimbal. It's going to have to happen in steps. Whew. I don't even know what this means. I know what a POG is, but I'm not sure if poggers is good or bad. Oh, I'm sorry, Leah. I didn't know. You can rewind. Yeah, that's it. Q has said exactly, right? That's what it is. This is my interaction with other people. Thank you for letting me know poggers equals good. Estimated cost. One phony is about equal to 17 semi-realies. So, or 3 flacids. One phony equals 3 flacids. So you can do the math there, and thank you for coming by. And we got to look at I don't know that I can ever. I mean, look at these things. Of course, you're going to be looking at something. Oh, I don't know if there's earwax or anything on these. Yes, I've been biting my nails. Not. Come on, get closer than that, can't we? How close can we get? Oh my God, this is really like a macro lens here. Look at that. Look at that red wire. That's something else. I'm afraid to turn this so you can see all the ear gunk. But yeah, these are what I generally use. It's nice to be free of them. Oh, Leah, I don't need that. But thank you. That's yeah. Everybody test that out. Make sure it works. I just want to see if it works. Just put any number in there. Just use 9s though. And yeah, is a flaccid worth anything? unlikely. Yeah, I try not to. And I had been successful, much more successful recently, because I play guitar. And I need my nailies to play guitar. I'll tell you what, whenever I play, like it gets copyright claimed, even if it's just like a few seconds, everybody, the YouTube world knows that song. I have been working on really needs an electric guitar and a lot of reverb. Yeah, it needs an electric guitar. At this point, I'm just anyway. Those are just things that are in various stages of being worked on. For probably pop up in a video somewhere, sometime. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I'm gonna dip. Thanks for coming by. And remember, whatever you got, it was
More than what we think we deserve.
And I love you all, and hope you all have a good week. And colorful dreams. Hope you feel better. Elksy, hope your parents feel better. I hope everybody else is having a decent 2022. Talk to y'all again soon. Good night.